enough of this.
Good afternoon and welcome to our first debate. I am Jules Cutler. I am the chair of the Libertarian Party of Iowa. We are very excited that this is the first time in the history of Iowa that we get to caucus for our presidential candidate. It is my pleasure and my honor to introduce the four candidates that we have. Josh Smith, current resident of Iowa. Lars Mapstead, a current resident of California. Mike Termott, current resident of Virginia. And Chase Oliver, current resident of Georgia. A huge thank you to Marco Battaglia, who is our host and moderator, for putting this together. Our caucus night is tomorrow at 6:30, and without further ado, let's hear it from all the candidates. Thank you.
Please clap. Please clap.
All right, so first of all, when we were able to get everybody together here that could make it, we do things like this with the help of people that donate to their local parties and to the state party and to the national party. So definitely please consider doing that. We've been on an upward trajectory for many years now, and we're going to have caucus sites in 99 counties. And it's all because of people that have volunteered their time and funds to the local party, the state party, and the national party. So please consider helping where you can. And we're going to get to know everybody up here. First off, we're going to start with Lars Mapstead, and you get to give a little introduction, talk about your campaign and yourself a little bit.
Okay, absolutely. When I say the system is rigged, you all know that that's true. Whether it be our education system, our election system, our economy, our criminal justice system, our health care, all of these things are rigged, and so many more things are rigged. And Americans are tired of having the system rigged against them. They're tired of having an unfair, rigged system working against them. They're tired of living under massive inflation and massive debt. They're tired of the authoritarian reach of government. My campaign is about unrigging the system, and I put forth a number of pieces of policy to do just that. From all the things that I just talked about, unrigging healthcare, unrigging our election system, I've put forth a voters' bill of rights, which levels the playing field for all candidates and allows for transparent elections with integrity and with open source code for voting machines and with receipts. Each machine will print a receipt for you so that you can check out your ballot, and also that you can look over the voting rolls and you can audit them, and you can also watch the voting happen and make sure that there isn't any funny business going on. Because right now, the Republicans and the Democrats guard the hen house, and that doesn't really work. That's a rigged system, so we're trying to undo that. And what I'm really trying to do is I'm trying to win an electoral vote on election night. Imagine going across the map, the media is going across the map, and California is blue, and Texas is red, and Florida is red, and New York is blue, and what in the hell is this gold stuff doing on the map up here? Imagine if we won enough electoral votes to deny both Trump and Biden the 270 electoral votes needed to win. Under the Constitution, this is a contingent election, and it goes to the House of Representatives to pick the President of the United States. And imagine how contentious that would be. You saw the House trying to pick a Speaker of the House, and they went absolutely crazy for weeks on end, and the country was in chaos. Now imagine if they had to pick the President of the United States. What I'm trying to do is get every person in America to Google what is a libertarian. And I want to give the Libertarian Party a win, because we don't have a lot of wins. And if we win an electoral vote on election night, we can get rid of this myth that I would vote for you, but you can't win. And by winning this electoral vote, we'll drive lots of new members to the party, and we'll drive lots of donations and money to the party, which will allow us to get our message out. Thank you very much.
All right, next we'll hear from Joshua Smith.
Yeah, hey guys, how's it going? My name's Joshua Smith. What?
Into microphone.
I'm gonna do that? Is that better?
Get closer.
Get close to the microphone, so because I was having a hard time picking you up.
We'll put it right here. How about that? Is that better?
It's not going out in the room. It's going to the feed.
We're getting it from the.
They're getting it from the feed. They're
Oh,
saying
okay.
it's not very loud.
Gotcha.
Okay. Hey, my name's Joshua Smith. A lot of you guys, everybody in the room pretty much knows who I am. I'm resident of Iowa. I'm running on a radical platform because I'm sick and tired of the forever wars. I'm sick and tired of a Federal Reserve that's making it so, middle class can't buy a home, and continues to prop up the warfare state with that money. I'm sick and tired of the federal government subsidizing the separation of family at the state level. It's time to radicalize America and bring them to our point of view. The only way we're going to do that is to explain to them how these things are hurting the middle class, especially. We have a middle class that's disappearing very rapidly in the United States. Things are becoming non-affordable. As a father of 7, I'm just a blue-collar working-class guy who's struggling to make it, and I'm just like every other American in the United States, and I'm sick of it. And so that's why I'm running for president. I want to bring this message of anti-war, the message of strong families, the message of ending the Federal Reserve, this Civil War message, right? And when I say Civil War, I don't mean, hey, we need to go out and attack our Americans. I mean Bitcoin, very important. We need to opt out of the Federal Reserve. We need to opt out of the fiat monetary system in the United States. We need to get the federal government to stop subsidizing the separation of families by using Title 4D of the Social Security Act. These are the things that are hurting Americans most, and I just want to make sure that Americans know about it. And so I'm running for president to pass along that message to everybody. Thank you.
All right, now we're going to hear from Mike Termont.
Thanks very much, and thanks for putting the program together. It's a terrific idea, and it's great to be here in Iowa. It's warm and balmy outside, as everybody knows, and so it's a great pleasure to be with you and to be with you tomorrow. I think everyone is excited about the caucus. As a reminder, 6:30, 99 sites. I didn't know it was up to 99. That's terrific. So you really have no excuse. Great weather, great locations, and a very convenient time. So I'm looking forward to spending some of tomorrow with you all here in Iowa. I am putting together a campaign that I believe is what we need to disrupt the way that the political duopoly in the United States has been working. I believe that we not only have an opportunity to do so as a Libertarian Party next year, but because the United States government has gone off the rails and is accelerating in a bad direction, I think this is actually our obligation. If you're waiting for a Republican or a Democrat to lead the charge back towards sanity in a fiscal sense, if you're waiting for one of those politicians to lead us back in a way that would give you a government that is anywhere related to a constitution of delimited powers, something that aligns better with your principles and your values, look, no matter how you look at it, you're waiting for something that's not going to happen. We need to take this bull by the horns ourselves. It is up to us. We are the philosophical descendants of the people that founded this nation, and by the way, did so for only one legitimate purpose, and that's to protect our individual liberty. It is up to us. It's time for us to run a campaign that we'll be proud of, and that is actually put together with a couple of things in mind that I believe that we haven't done a very good job of in the past. Number one, we have to run an uncompromisingly principled platform. As everyone knows, I'm running on what I call the Gold New Deal, a new relationship between us and government. As we often say, a new relationship between us and the government we will tolerate. You can all read about it at goldnewdeal.org. Pardon the plug, but I think it's important. The other thing that we need to do as a campaign, as a party, is to run a campaign that is extremely professional, extremely credible. The campaign that I'm putting together already has 15 people on our staff that are paid lightly. They'll complain, I'm sure. We're putting together a messaging campaign that I think you all will recognize as very, very credible. We lean into my own personal background in public service and public policy very heavily. I'm a professional economist. I have been so for something like 25 years. I've worked for the federal government. I worked for the White House for a couple of years in international agencies. I've taught at 3 different universities. I've been an advocate for free markets and open competition for 10 years in Washington, D.C. I've been around the block, and I've been there and I've done that. And the reason I believe this is important, although for a lot of us libertarians that sort of background is not terribly important, but it's absolutely critical outside of our party to earn the respect of media, big donors, and a lot of voters. You need to clear that threshold of credibility, because remember, we're in it to actually disrupt how American politics works. As a second career in public service and public policy, I worked as a police officer for 11 and a half years until a couple of years ago, from the age of 49 to 60. Very interesting experience, especially if you do the whole 11 years as a registered libertarian. I can assure you, you have some fairly interesting conversations, not only with people in your community, but your bosses and people you work with as well. And I'm very proud of that service, and it's the kind of thing that I think that Americans are looking for as a new twist on how we put forward our big important plans. So I look forward to talking to you all about that, and here's Chase.
And we'll hear from Chase Oliver.
Last but not least, thank you LP Iowa for hosting this event. I'm excited to be back in Iowa. This is my third time back in the state. And I want to start with my remarks talking about hard work, because I think that's what we need from a libertarian candidate as we're trying to break through, fight against the two-party system, as well as other independents who are trying to choke the oxygen out of our movement. And so I can promise to you I'm going to be the hardest worker we've ever had as a libertarian candidate for president. They call it the full Grassley here in Iowa when you travel to all 99 counties campaigning. I want to do the national full Grassley. I'm on track to campaign in all 50 states of the country to make sure I speak with libertarians and voters in every corner of the country, because I think it's important to show that we're a national party that has the energy and enthusiasm to actually get out there and do that. I've also made a little bit of history for the Libertarian Party here in the state of Iowa, and I was proud to do that because I campaigned through the state, earned media, and at the Iowa State Fair, the Des Moines Register invited me to speak on stage alongside the two party candidates, and I'm the first candidate for president who's not a Republican or a Democrat who's ever been afforded that opportunity. That's just an example of that hard work. And I think the metrics are speaking for themselves out of this campaign. Throughout this last year, as I've been traveling, we have gotten the most donations from donors. We created a large donor network. We have a volunteer network of over 300 volunteers, as well as some paid staff. We have gotten more media attention. We have traveled more miles, and this is just the beginning. We're just getting started. We're actually going to ramp this up as we go through the nomination and beyond. You're going to see more energy and enthusiasm from a libertarian candidate than we have seen in a long time. I'm a principled libertarian, and last year I got to do the honorable thing of sticking a thumb in the eye of the duopoly when I ran for the United States Senate, and I forced a runoff between Herschel Walker and Raphael Warnock. That was the most expensive Senate race in U.S. history. That was a $250 million race for the two-party system. Well, I forced a runoff with less than $20,000. 18 cents per vote was the cost for my vote. They spent between $20 and $25. That tells you that this campaign can do an awful lot with very little bit of resources, and we have to recognize that as libertarians. We're going to be fighting an uphill battle, and we need somebody who knows how to be scrappy, get out there, and get the attention we need. And I know I can do that for us as a party. I know I can do that for us as a movement. And I have 4 metrics of victories, because we are going to have wins with an Oliver for candidate presidency, or campaign rather. You know, we have the chance to win the White House, and I recognize that's the highest hill to climb, but if any libertarian can climb that summit, it's going to be me. But I guarantee you these wins. We're going to win major party status in states, just like Iowa did, that allowed us to have these caucuses and greater notice from the media. We're going to win ballot access fights so that it's easier to get libertarians in the ballot, so we can challenge the two-party system in localities all over the country. We're going to help local winnable libertarians win their races, because it's important for us as a presidential campaign to be that chief brand officer, be putting ourselves out there as much as possible and help those winnable races. And lastly, my commitment is to double our party membership and have that sustained for the next 4 years, so our candidate in 2028 can start out on an even better foot than our candidate in 2024. That's my promise to you. I want you to go visit votechaseoliver.com to learn more. And if you're a resident of Iowa, go to votechaseoliver.com/Iowa to find your caucus site today. We look forward to you participating tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Thank you.
All right, we're going to start with Joshua Smith with the most popular question.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I can't
So,
wait.
and then we'll go down the line, and everybody can give their thoughts on that. What were your thoughts on the lockdowns and mandates over the course of the Trump and Biden administrations? And what case would you make to prevent future state lockdowns and mandates?
I think everybody that took part in the COVID regime, who used faulty science and hearsay to lock us down and mask us and force vaccinate us, should be prosecuted in a Nuremberg-style trial, and then, if found guilty of crimes against humanity, locked in Guantanamo Bay. I've been very clear about this. I think that it was the greatest tyranny of our lifetime. Anybody who says it wasn't doesn't know what tyranny is. When they're telling you that your 6-year-old has to have a vaccine of a untested vaccine with no safety or efficacy data to go to school, these people are not good faith actors. And so, I say this in jest sometimes, but I do mean it. I believe that anybody who's found culpable of crimes against humanity, whether it's executives at pharmaceutical companies like Pfizer, if it's the president of the United States, if it's prior presidents of the United States, if it's governors, if it's Congress, if it's state Congress people, they should be prosecuted, because this can't happen again. It can never happen again. I feel very thankful to live in a state that pushed back on those things, but a lot of my friends didn't. And it's coming from California. When I left California, 5 minutes before the 24-hour lockdown started, I left California and moved to Iowa, and I never looked back. And my friends in California were locked down. They were forced vaccinated. I've had friends that were injured by the vaccine, and it's disgusting. It's disgusting that the way they treated Americans over this sickness that for most of us was no worse than a cold. And so I would prosecute to the fullest extent of the law anybody who took part in the COVID regime that hurt my friends and families and communities across the country.
All right, candidate Mike Termott, if you need me to repeat the question or...
Oh no, we all know what it is, and appreciate that. Josh's attitude is exactly right. I think I would handle it differently, but he is exactly right, that the type of tyranny that was foisted upon this nation is absolutely unforgivable. I want to go one layer deeper on this, though. For me, this isn't merely a problem of bad science, as bad as the science was. What I would like to ask for you to imagine, just for a moment, use your imagination, work with me here. Imagine the world's greatest, most perfect vaccine. It's perfect. There's no side effects. If you get the vaccine, you're going to live, and if you don't get the vaccine, you're going to die. If you get the vaccine, it's going to stop transmissibility completely. It's a vaccine with 100% long-term testing. There's no risk here. You with me so far? Use your imagination, right? In such an example, would the government have the right to tell you you have to take this vaccine? Absolutely not. In other words, what I'm trying to say is, as bad as the science was, I don't give a damn how good their science might ever be. We need a complete separation of science from the state in this country. We cannot be put in a situation where some government employee is paid to think about whether or not you should take a vaccine. I don't care how great it is. I don't care how crappy it is. That is a decision for you to make. And personally, you haven't asked yet, but I'm sure you're about to. As for me, I make my medical decisions the same way I believe every red-blooded American male should. I do what my wife tells me to do. And I resent the idea that the federal government thinks that it's as smart as Nancy is. That's not the way this should work, right? If someone's gonna boss me around, it better damn well be my spouse. We can't have a government making decisions about you and your personal life. And this goes, of course, well beyond vaccines and mandates and masks and all the other crappy science. It goes to ending the war on drugs and allowing you to make decisions about your own life in every which way. So it's really a fundamental issue, I think.
Chase, Oliver, the same topic.
Yeah, I think one really interesting aspect of your question is when you talk about both prior presidential administrations. I think COVID has done something that we've been trying to expose for the entire 50 years of the Libertarian Party, that the Republicans and Democrats really aren't that different from each other. They're both happy locking you down. They're both happy spending trillions of dollars in money, taxpayer money that causes runaway inflation, to give us a $1,200 check, but to bail out large corporate interests and kind of screw over the average American while they lock down our businesses. That's a lesson that each and every American needs to learn and be reiterated about as we go through this campaign. That it doesn't matter whether it's a Republican or a Democrat, all 50 state governors locked down in one way or another. And I can say I was happy that I was a state that opened up far earlier than the rest of the country. And because of that, Georgia's economy didn't get as affected as much as the rest of the country. That's a success story that I would like to expand out to more and more people, to expose how harmed the economy has been. And I've heard personal stories, and I've had personal family and friends who have been affected by these lockdowns. I had a friend who was a florist. That was the dream of her life, was to own a flower shop. She served weddings and funerals and all that kind of good stuff. And she was shut down during the lockdowns. But you know who was open during the lockdowns? The Lowe's Garden Center down the road, because they were essential. So her business went under, but Lowe's, they did just fine. And now where does she work? In the Lowe's Garden Center. And so the American people have been robbed of their prosperity, their freedom, their wealth. All of these things has happened because of COVID. And all of this has been a bipartisan effort. No, Republicans were not any better on COVID than Democrats. Donald Trump took every recommendation that Anthony Fauci gave him without question, and he made a campaign ad about it in 2020 about how proud he was of that. And I think it's time we expose that both Republicans and Democrats failed on COVID, and it's time for a new path, one rooted in individual freedom. And as Mike said, if the vaccine was perfect, it would never need to be mandated. Why? Because good ideas don't require force. And that's the difference between libertarians and Republicans and Democrats. We recognize that good ideas don't require the force of government or the bullets of or behind a badge or any kind of enforcement. We can do that for ourselves. And if there's something that's bad enough to where it's killing a whole bunch of people, trust me, I'll lock myself down. I'll have plenty of canned goods and a firearm to protect me and my own while that happens. But barring that happening, the government needs to stay the hell out of it, and we just need to have peaceful prosperity with one another.
Lars Mepstead, same question.
Thank you so much. The government failed us when it comes to COVID. The government turned COVID into a political scenario, a political fiasco. We watched Donald Trump and Anthony Cuomo fight each other back and forth who could be better on TV. And it was almost like a TV show, a sitcom. And our government completely failed us because instead of allowing people to make informed decisions about their own person and their own health care, they decided that they would know best for us how to live our lives. And it's very clear that they didn't know what they were doing and that they had a lot of fear and that they were listening to experts and other people that had ulterior motives and had financial interest that were not in the best benefit of the regular people of America. I live in California. The lockdowns were incredible there. Literally, little old ladies were getting taken out of their cars while they were watching the sunset with their windows rolled up because somehow the COVID was going to escape the car and get to the person next to them. I actually was in a state park where they social distanced the cars, so they had a separate parking spot in between each car so that the cars wouldn't give each other COVID or something like that. I'm not really sure. But on the other hand, my dad got COVID and he almost died from it. I got COVID, my family got COVID, we were lucky and we didn't have problems. There was clearly people that suffered and a lot of people died from COVID. And you know, there's a good chance that the government failed on that too because they might have been involved in the very thing that got everybody sick. And I'm not a grand conspiracy theory or anything like that, but it seems to me that the average citizen that kind of looks at the information that was presented has to agree at some point that the government completely failed and that it would have been much better off to let the citizens of America decide for themselves and not turn it into a political charade that it became. My whole position on it is you have the most choice over your own body and your own health care, and that's the way that it should be, and the government should have very limited to no control over your personhood at all.
Thank you. For this next question, we'll start with you, Lars.
There you go, Lars.
So, it is rare to find a liberty-minded candidate that has good things to say about the Federal Reserve and our broader monetary practices. What specifically would you suggest to help us move away from financial tyranny and towards sound money practices?
So the federal government has stolen $34 trillion from the American people. That's the amount of debt that we have. They've probably stolen more because they don't actually report the numbers properly. But every time the government prints money, it steals money from your pocket. It steals your standard of living. And we've seen this to a great degree in the last couple of years through all the inflation that we've had. Everybody can see it because it's been rapid. But we've been going through this inflation kind of like a frog boiling in water slowly. It's just that they turned up the heat a little bit, and we all started feeling it, and then we were like, wait a minute, what's going on? You know, they literally turn our dollars into pocket change inside of our pockets, and this is a hidden tax that has to end. Because instead of raising taxes, they just basically create inflation by printing tons and tons of money. And there's a thing called the Cantillon effect, which essentially is when the government prints money, it takes that money and gives it to the banks. And the banks give that money to the corporations. And by the time it trickles down to the regular person, we get literally pennies on the dollar. And that is the reason why we have income inequality and wealth inequality in America, is because the Federal Reserve, created in 1913, has been robbing the people ever since, $34 trillion. We have to balance our budget, stop the endless debt cycle, and get our fiscal house in order. We are literally spending ourselves out of house and home at this point, and it's got to stop.
Joshua Smith, same topic.
The Federal Reserve is a giant counterfeiting machine that steals our wealth through a tax called inflation. It's got to go. Look, if the president had the opportunity to walk in on day one and rip up the 1930 Federal Reserve Charter, I'd do it. Absolutely, 100% would do it without question. They've been harming Americans for over 100 years, 110 years now. That's insane to think about. And we're constantly fed this line of crap that, you know, the Federal Reserve, you know, raising their rates and inflation and all these things are actually helping to fix the monetary market. That's untrue. The only thing fixing the monetary market right now are people that are opting out of the fiat monetary system created by the U.S. federal government, the Federal Reserve, by using avenues such as Bitcoin, okay? Now, a lot of people might laugh and scoff at Bitcoin, but this is a dream of mass adoption that's actually coming true right now in front of everybody's eyes. You know, we're sitting at $50,000 per Bitcoin because people are starting to realize that the fiat money market in the United States is a sham that has been destroying American families for generations. And so it's a beautiful tool. Like I said in the beginning, it's the tool of the Civil War, right? It's not the only one. There's also, you know, 3D printing firearms. The gun debate is over. We can 3D print our own firearms in our garage for a $350 Ender machine, okay? These are the real Civil War things. These are the real things that are having us opt out of a federal government that has only sought to grow its power over everyday Americans. And the Federal Reserve is at the very center of that. You know, they use this inflation, this tax on Americans to steal our wealth, to prop up the U.S. imperialistic war machine, right? These constant forever wars in the Middle East. Like in Iraq, we're now bombing Iraq again for what, the 4th time since 1989? We're talking almost 40 years. We're bombing them again, and that's all. You know, this is all propped up by this inflation and the constant money printing and giving, you know, kickbacks to their friends that are different military contractors, and so, you know, as a president, nobody on this panel, if we got into the presidency tomorrow, would have the power to rip up the Federal Reserve Act. We just wouldn't have the opportunity to rip up that charter. But we do get to pick the Federal Reserve chair, and I've talked very clearly about it, that, you know, my dream contribution would be to make sure that Ron Paul becomes the Fed chair, goes into the Federal Reserve and starts tearing down the walls, because that's what we need. We need somebody who's going to go in there and start tearing down the walls. We also have the opportunity to direct the Treasury, I believe, to no longer work with the Fed and other things like that. So I would get in there and I'd work with great economists, you know, even if Tremont wanted to work with me, about how we could go about tearing down the Federal Reserve, because it's harming Americans, and it has been for years, and it just continues to prop up this giant tyrannical machine that we call the U.S. federal government. Thank you.
Second question.
My turn?
Mike Tremont.
Oh, thanks, I appreciate that. Josh and Lars, both of them are exactly right on this. And by the way, am I allowed to plug? Josh has a podcast later on today, and I'm going to join him for a bit. We'll talk in a little bit more detail about some of these more nerdly topics if he wants to. It's his podcast.
Of course.
Talk about whatever he wants to talk about.
We're just going to dunk on Nikki Haley.
We're going to dunk on Nikki Haley, which is always good fun, and a very large target, so it's kind of taking candy from the baby. Look, I spent well over a decade doing battle with the Federal Reserve System in a regulatory sense, because it's a beast of a problem, not only in terms of monetary policy and all the inflation that it creates, but what it does to our economy because of its bad regulation of financial institutions. So we need to get rid of the Federal Reserve for all kinds of different reasons. The enormous amount of inflation that we've had the past several years, I lay squarely at the feet of the Federal Reserve System. And notice, the problem with the Fed has persisted. We've had Republican presidents, Democratic presidents, and change of hand in terms of power on Capitol Hill, and the Fed just keeps rolling along. So we need to fundamentally change the way the Fed works, and that is to say, get rid of it lock, stock, and barrel. And the first step, Josh is exactly right, the first step is to change its leadership, appoint economists, and we are out there who believe earnestly in stopping this silly idea of the Fed having complete discretion over monetary policy and just deciding one day we're in this mood, we're in that mood. We need what I call a rules-based system, which is you take away the discretion of the Fed and you control the amount of money that is issued, and it nips that in the bud. And the other thing that needs to be said about the Fed is that it wants to issue its own blockchain-based digital currency, and we absolutely should be in no position to tolerate that crap. No one believes that when the Fed issues this currency, they will not turn over the data to the Treasury Department and the FBI to monitor your transactions. That they will absolutely do. So for a variety of reasons, we need to keep the Fed out of this. Look, you also brought up the issue of the federal government issuing so much debt. We're up to $34 trillion. This is not, and I would say the same thing about inflation. These are not just math problems, right? This is not just for nerds. These problems are fundamental ethical problems. They're problems of principle. They're problems of value. The idea that you would pass on to the next generation $34 trillion of debt, that's not just people being bad at math. That's people being bad at ethics. The idea that you would undermine Americans' ability to make ends meet by generating all of this inflation, yeah, there are a whole bunch of people in Washington who are bad at math, I'll give you that, but that's no excuse. That is a fundamental ethical problem, and we need to stand up against that. Thanks a lot.
Chase Oliver, same topic.
Yeah, so we're going to hear a little repetition here because I do agree with a lot of things everybody has said here. Of course, the Fed printing dollars out of thin air creates inflation, which is a hidden tax on every one of us. It's a tax nobody votes for, but the tax that hits us nonetheless. It is a real problem, the fact that you can't just walk in and end it on day one, but there are 3 steps that we can do to address the issues of the Fed. First and foremost, the greatest piece of legislation that Ron Paul ever introduced was the Audit the Fed legislation that would take that auditing power and put it in the hands of the legislature so that we, the people, can have our representatives in government be able to see what is going on in the Fed and actually give us a glimpse of what it is. Because once we expose what they're doing, it's going to be far easier to pass a movement to end the Fed at the legislative level. Secondly, we need to be starting to put our money back where it's backed by something. Gold, silver, saffron, I don't care what it is. Put it next to a finite resource and have it tagged next to something of value. So that way we're not just artificially creating value out of thin air using the fiat currency system. When we do that, we're going to lower the impact of inflation because it will be lessened. We're actually going to have proper monetary policy. And then last, of course, we do need to support alternative currencies like Bitcoin. It is something that allows us to move our money in private without anybody being able to see what we do. And God knows privacy is a God-given right for each and every one of us. And so that's something we need to be supporting, as well as fighting back against the CBDCs. Because what they're going to do is they're going to choke out the Bitcoins of the world. If a CBDC gets created by the Treasury, that will be the only digital currency that will be allowed to be used in the United States. It will kill off the crypto market. And so we have to stop this. We have to push back against this in a forceful way, but the first step of doing that is exposing the wrongdoing of the Fed. And so if I'm elected president, the first piece of legislation that I'm going to ask that Congress bring me is audit the Fed legislation. You can call it the Ron Paul Act if we want. But really, that's the first thing we have to do, is expose the wrongdoing, fight to end it altogether, put our money back to something that actually has real value to it, and support the idea of independent cryptocurrency, not ones controlled by government. That is the only way to true freedom in the monetary market, and that's what I'm going to fight for as your president. Thank you.
For the next topic, we'll start with Mike Termott. This question is based upon the ideas of Iowan Gabe Brown. Believed that eliminating current heavy market manipulation would allow farmers in Iowa the freedom to farm how they see best fit for their land, community, and family. So the Farm Bill and federal laws and incentives related to ethanol are big issues for landowners in Iowa. What are your thoughts on how the federal government currently uses its power in relation to agriculture?
The same way the Fed uses its power in lots of other markets, it screws up these markets. Look, what really undermines any industry is the idea that the federal government can help in the long run. It does not help in the long run. For some period of time, the government can keep shoving money in, and artificially expands these industries. And then all of a sudden, someone decides it's a bad idea, as they should have decided 100 years earlier. And when the policy changes, all of a sudden you have disruption. Anyone been to Detroit? You know what I'm talking about. You can't prop up an industry for 100 years and then find out that what you've been doing is a bad idea and expect that to go well. Detroit represents an industry that went overseas, should have gone overseas in a thoughtful, timely manner over a period of decades, instead of over a matter of months and a small number of years, just because the government lost its ability to keep propping up an industry that it shouldn't have. And so now Detroit is 1/3 the size that it used to be, and has just been completely blighted out. The federal government screws up businesses, industries, whenever it gets too involved. And now, of course, we have an adjunct problem, which is the government has screwed up the overall market for energy in the United States. In the long run, the solution for energy in the United States will be the embracing of nuclear technology. And somewhat ironically, it is the government's fault that it has created regulatory roadblocks to the development of nuclear technology, at the same time as propping up other industries, other forms of energy that are not as cost effective, in many cases not even as green, which of course the federal government says it's ostensible objective here. In the long run, eventually markets will overcome the bad federal policy, but the longer it takes, the more it hurts our economy and hurts families that can least afford it, and that disruption will be greater. And I fear, on behalf of the Iowa farm industry, that when that disruption comes, it's going to be hellacious and economically depressive, whereas if the government would wind down in a thoughtful manner, the extent to which it screws up these markets, the disruption wouldn't be so bad. So I fear that very much.
Chase, Oliver, the same topic.
Yeah, so let's talk about the market disruption that happens with Iowa farmers here. So first off, when we're talking about ethanol, we're of course talking about corn. Now, I come from an agricultural state. It's the #1 industry in Georgia, so it's something that I've spent a fair time talking to folks about. But here in Iowa, they want to subsidize corn. So you subsidize the corn, taxpayer money goes to pay for that, and then of course we grow the corn, we grow in excess of corn, and what do? They create a whole bunch of corn syrup. Corn syrup, it gets put in everything. It makes everything sugary and fatty and bad for you. And so now what do Democrats want to do? They want to tax corn syrup because corn syrup is bad for you. So instead of taxing the corn syrup and giving the subsidies, how about we just have no taxpayer money involved in the corn market, and we let people buy corn as they need it, as the market should be providing. That's basic economics. And we need to be pushing our farmers back towards this process. You should be able to grow what's going to provide you money and provide you prosperity, not what's going to give you a government handout. So we have to roll back this agricultural subsidy model that we have in our country and actually get ourselves back to a free market of agricultural economics. That will allow for more stability in the marketplace. And then we're talking about energy, by the way. We mentioned energy a little bit. I absolutely oppose the state of Iowa using the power of eminent domain to take farmers' lands to build pipelines through the land. It's your property, it's not the state's property. You should be allowed to do with it what you want. And if you want to sell your land to put a pipeline through it, as a farmer, you absolutely have that right. But the government shouldn't be robbing you of your land to do that. And lastly, I do want to talk about more market manipulation in terms of agriculture. That is the market manipulation that happens with the statist immigration policy that we have in our border. Because a lot of our labor, trust me, and farmers will tell you this firsthand, I interviewed a lot of them when I ran for Senate in Georgia, they need labor on their farms to do the work. And oftentimes that is immigrant labor. And when we prevent people from coming and doing the work that people want to hire them to do, what we're doing is we are creating a manipulation of the marketplace. We're driving up prices, and we are no longer creating an actual market equilibrium here. So those are the things that I think we can do to facilitate an actual more free market agriculture. Get rid of the subsidies. You got to wind those down over time, and basically get ourselves back to a free market economics. Support farmers' rights and their property rights from being robbed, whether it's from the state of Iowa or anyone else trying to use their land for something they don't want to use. And then lastly, let's get ourselves back to supporting an immigration system that can help farmers grow the crops they need, that will help feed the nation, and that will help us export crops all over the world. Having worked in international logistics, I can tell you there's lots of money to be made there, but we just need to get the government out of the way of it. And that's really what I think most libertarians are going to have as a boilerplate answer for nearly every issue. But it's issues that are very important to folks, and certainly important to Iowa farmers. And we want to make sure that their voices are being heard, and that they're not being robbed. They're not being robbed from their taxes to pay for subsidies that then make more corn syrup, and then we tax the corn syrup. So let's just get the government out of it altogether.
Thank you, Chase. Lars Mapstead, same topic.
Thank you very much. I have a number of farmer friends. I live in California, near Salinas, California. It's a big farming area, salad bowl of America, they call it. And Chase is right. A lot of my farmer friends rely on migrant workers in order to get the food to the table, and you see them out there picking the food and that sort of thing. And a lot of my friends have gone out there to try to get a job, and they last literally not the morning, and they're done doing it, and they said, this is too hard of work, we don't want to do it. And so I respect all the people working there, and I respect the farmers. Look, farmers know what crops to plant for themselves best, not the government, right? Every time the government gets involved, it's like a little Band-Aid, and they're great. Harry Brown had his thing about the government's great at breaking your leg and handing you a crutch and telling you we're here to help, right? And I think we see this all the time. The government gets involved in the markets, and it's trying to do something good. It thinks it's going to do something good. It's going to help produce more of something we need or whatnot. But the reality of it is, every time the government gets involved in the market, they distort the market, and they create disruption in the marketplace, and that causes prices to swing out of control. That causes us to not have the resources that we need to allocate to different areas of our economy, and we get left flat-footed. In Argentina, this is a perfect example of government getting involved. In Argentina, they have Milei, who's just been elected the president there, and one of the first things that he did is he got rid of rent control in Buenos Aires. And what happened was the stock of housing for rent, to be able to rent, went up dramatically, and the price fell 20%. And the government has been in there trying to control rent and make it affordable for people for however long, 30 years. And all he had to do to make this go away was to get government out of the way and let the market work. So the problem is like every time somebody in the government wants to do something, they're doing it because they think that they're helping the people and that they're being helpful. And I believe that they really want to help people. But the problem is every time you use authoritarian force to make people do things, you're distorting the market, and the free market really is the best solution for prosperity in America. And every time the government comes in, they breed mediocrity. And the more government we have, the more mediocre we become.
Joshua Smith.
I'm sure as the Iowa resident, you want me to have a long drawn out answer to this. I don't. I think that subsidies in general are the carrot and the stick, the carrot and the horse. The carrot on a stick, the horse.
Carrot and stick,
yeah. You know what I was trying to say. It's much like welfare and other subsidies around the country. It's this promise of this great program that's going to help everybody out, but at the end of the day, it's really just the government taking theirs on the back end. That's what it's always been. That's what all these things have been. Baseball subsidies, baseball stadium subsidies. It's always about the government taking what's theirs, what they think is theirs on the back end, and using one people to make the other people feel like they have to help those people. And the farming industry is the lifeblood of America. It's not just the lifeblood of Iowa. It's the lifeblood of America. We are a farming nation. We're built by farmers. And so, we've convinced the farming community, especially in Iowa with the corn subsidies, especially in Iowa, that they're better off with these corn subsidies, that they're much better off when the government's taking care of them, right? But that's just simply not the truth. The truth is that the farmers in Iowa would be a lot better if the government just stepped out of the way and let them sell their products like you would at the Saturday's farmers market, right? Like, there's no reason why the government should have to have their hand in all of these transactions that Americans make with each other on a daily basis. There's no reason whatsoever other than they want their piece of the pie. And so, you know, as a presidential candidate, and any libertarian with assault is going to say the same thing. We need to get the government out of the way. The government should not have a hand in the farming industry in the United States, period. Plain and simple. And that's it. Thank you.
For this question, we'll start with Mike Termont. What would you say to people that have been following the GOP debates, people that were hoping for Biden primary opponents to be acknowledged, and also people that would have been following, are following Robert Kennedy Jr., hoping for alternatives? What would you say to them as to why they should support you over the other options on the ballot?
Stop wasting your vote. If you are voting for someone that does not represent your principles and your ethics and your values, you are wasting your vote. Not only are you supporting something that you don't believe in, which on some level is weird and un-American and bad, for lack of a longer word, but it's also true that you're undermining your own ability to bring change, to affect change, to force change. You're not getting the job done if you're voting for something that you don't believe in. Whereas, if you would wake up and realize, and most Americans have a libertarian streak inside of them, if you would realize that your own personal principles do align with those of the founding fathers, do align with what the basic ideas are in the Constitution, and big time align with what we're talking about here and what the Libertarian Party represents, if you would realize that, you would realize that the only way to force change is to disrupt the way that American politics has been working. And the way that it's been working is that Republicans and Democrats have we call it a duopoly, right? But they have control, and one might argue that those two parties have merged together so much in their philosophy that it's actually a monopoly, not a duopoly, right? They have been able to completely disregard your values. What's the number one priority of the Democratic Party? Keep the Republicans out of power. Number one priority of the Republicans, keep the Democrats out of power. And that is different than it was 30 years ago. A long time ago, there was such a thing as a fiscally conservative Republican and an anti-war Democrat. Show me one now. Not so much, right? Maybe a couple. The only thing anti-war on the Democratic side is Bob Kennedy Jr., right? And he's got all kinds of other political problems. A lot of people are trying to say that they're libertarian-ish these days, right? Vivek, he wants to say he's libertarian. You didn't mention Vivek, I think, but same idea, right? This guy says he's libertarian-ish because he doesn't like the state. Well, good for him. We all hate the state. This is also the guy that wants to invade Mexico because he thinks it's a good idea to prop up the war on drugs. Squeeze me? Now you're talking about Robert Kennedy Jr., who believes that you want change. Don't be carrying a gun when you want that change, though, right? And Bob Kennedy Jr. is the one who doesn't like mask mandates and vaccine mandates, but why? Think about it. Listen to him when he talks about it. The reason he doesn't like him is because he doesn't like the vaccines. If the vaccines were better, he would be all about it because he's a good government guy. He's not a small government guy. He's not a remove the government, get it out of your way kind of guy. Stop wasting your vote. Vote for your values and force the other parties to take into consideration your values.
Chase Oliver, September.
Yeah, so when you see the Republican debate, what you're seeing is you're seeing a party that is trying to fight back against a president who has basically been a career grifter his entire life. I'm sorry, Donald Trump is not the savior of this nation like some people believe he is. He spent more money in 4 years than any other president ever has. He was the first guy to lock us down. He is an abandoning of the ideas of freedom. He is an illiberal, illogical person. And then who else do you have on that stage? You have Nikki Haley, Dick Cheney in a dress, who basically wants to send us to war all around the world. Can't even answer that the Civil War was about slavery, and she's from South Carolina. She is an embarrassment. When you see Vivek, well, exactly, Vivek the fake, that's what he is. He's not really a libertarian. He's trying to get our libertarian votes because he wants to get more than 5% in the caucuses tomorrow, and he's thinking that the Libertarian Party is going to help him do that. We have our own caucuses we'll be participating in. Thank you very much, and we don't need Republicans' help to do that. And when we talk about the Democrats, What do we see with the Democratic Party? We see the Joe Biden administration refusing to even hold debates or participate in this process at all. This from the party who claims that they want to preserve democracy, save democracy, that complain about anything that has to do with, by the way, opening up the ballot or any kind of ballot access or ranked choice voting. They're not for preserving that kind of democracy. They want to preserve the democracy that allows Joe Biden to walk in without any challenge into the general election. And let me just tell you right now, as a former anti-war Democrat from over 20 years ago, right, they did used to exist. Now they became libertarians, is what happened. But the truth is when we see Joe Biden going out there trying to act like he's going to be some sort of savior of democracy, well, I'll tell you, Democrats, you need to be worried. The man is over 80. We don't let 80-year-olds drive most of the time anymore. Why are we letting them control our federal government? This is why I want to be a younger candidate, to provide a new generational voice for the Libertarian Party and a stark contrast. And oh, by the way, Robert Kennedy Jr., also over 70, also full of old 20th century ideas. And let me just say to you this, to anybody who's listening to this right now, if you're looking for an anti-establishment candidate, the last name Kennedy should be a good indicator that he's not anti-establishment. They're a political dynasty in this country. And so I'm sorry, if you really want independence, if you want to vote for somebody that you feel good about voting for, someone that's actually fighting for you and not for their own personal beliefs and using the power of government to push those beliefs upon you, you need to vote for a libertarian for president, a libertarian for governor, or for Congress, or at any race. You need to be supporting the libertarian message and the libertarian movement, because they actually support you and your right to control your life, your body, your business, and your property as you see fit. So long as you're not committing violence, force, fraud, theft, or coercion, that is our message distilled down. And that is a message that resonates with millions of Americans, and they will feel good about voting for us and not just feel dirty about voting for the lesser of two or lesser of three evils in this case. So my message to voters is clear. If you want something different, something that's not the establishment, then you need to get outside of the establishment walls. And that is the Republican and Democratic Party, and certainly anybody with the last name Kennedy.
Joshua Smith, same topic.
Yeah, I guess to answer all those questions, I'd say, are you enjoying this dog and pony show? I mean, that's really what it is at the end of the day. You got the front runner candidate won't even join the debates for the Republican Party. Of course, they don't want to run anyone against Biden, but we all know that Biden couldn't make it another term. I mean, the guy can hardly walk off a stage today. How's he going to make it another 4 years? We're going to see somebody like Gavin Newsom really take the lead eventually. And let me tell you, as somebody from California, you don't want Gavin Newsom to be the president of the United States. Let me address this by saying, I'm from right outside of San Francisco, the San Francisco Bay Area, but San Francisco specifically. It was a beautiful city when I was a kid. Beautiful city. We used to go there all the time for all kinds of events and walk around, and the crime was pretty low for the big cities. You didn't step and poop every single time you took a step. There wasn't heroin needles all over the side of the road. And Gavin Newsom is the one who created San Francisco as you know it today. He's the one that did it because he was the mayor of the city. And unfortunately, in the state of California, we have this really terrible trend of failing upwards in politics. It's really what they do in the state of California. And so, you know, people took a look at how terrible San Francisco is now and said, yeah, that's what we need for the whole state. So please, as somebody who's lived it, don't let him fail upwards again and make the whole country like the state of California. It would be terrible. But at the end of the day, you know, we can talk about this candidate, that candidate, this candidate. I have hours and hours and hours of footage of me talking about every candidate individually. You know, I think that Trump was a huge letdown because of Operation Warp Speed, and also because of he didn't even hint at pardoning Julian Assange, despite him saying that the corporate news media was an enemy of the people. Joe Biden doesn't know his name from his butt. You know, these are your politicians. These are the people that are governing your life. They're the ones making decisions for your children and your future. Okay, listen very closely in these debates. Please do. I want you to understand that this is about hubris and ego for these people. You know, a lot of these people are hand-selected by their parties because they have a name, right? Robert Kennedy Jr., okay, this guy has been against the Second Amendment, said he would pull it entirely if he could get the votes from Congress to do so. Okay, he's said he was anti-war, but now he's all gung-ho about war in the Middle East. You know, it took 30 seconds for his mind to change on the anti-war sentiment. And that's all of our politicians, Republicans and Democrats. 30 seconds, a couple of dollars, and a couple of, hey, we'll get you back laters, and they'll say whatever they want us, whatever those people want them to say. And so, you know, you have an opportunity to look at third parties at the very least. And I think it's very important. I've been working with the Libertarian Party now since 2016. Okay, I've been working with independents since 2008. Of course, I worked on Ron Paul's campaign in 2008 with the Republicans. I watched the way that our ideals and our values as libertarians are treated in the Republican Party firsthand. I saw it. They're arresting our delegates showing up to caucus for Ron Paul. Okay, they blackballed him from the media. This is one of the greatest living statesmen of my lifetime, and they treated them like that. The Republicans. So I don't want to hear anybody tell me that watches these debates say, hey, the Republicans care about our liberty. No, they don't. No, they don't. Absolutely, they are not our friends. They don't care about our values and our morals. They don't care about the individual sovereignty of your own body. They don't care. What they care about is money. What they care about is their friends in these positions that they can give kickbacks to and get favors from. And it's the same with the Democrats. And we watch it every day on TV. We see the corruption in front of us. Why do we continue to do the same things over and over and over again? It's time to change. It's gotta be time. Thank you.
Lars Memstead, same topic.
Thank you. We have the illusion of choice in America. All my life, I seem to have been voting for Clinton or Bush, Clinton or Bush. Now it's Trump or Biden, Trump or Biden, and I'm sick of it. Is America sick and tired of being sick and tired of having the illusion of choice? The whole entire election system is rigged. The people have already been chosen. Donald Trump and Joe Biden have already been chosen long ago, and all of this is just a charade. And they're saying the quiet part out loud now. They suppressed Kennedy so much that he left his party and went independent. In New Hampshire, the Democrats are telling their people that their vote doesn't count in New Hampshire primary, that it's all kind of a charade and it'll be made up at the convention. Why as American citizens, taxpayers, have to pay for private corporations, the RNC and the DNC's election system? Imagine if I told you, you guys have to pay for Apple Computer, their board of directors. You would tell me to go take a flying leap. But somehow these private corporations who have corrupted our system and run our elections, everybody hates corporations, but somehow private corporations have taken over our system and run our elections. They oversee all the polling. They oversee how the elections are run. They oversee the ballot access. And all of this is through, they own the court system. They own all of the ways in which you can get into the system. And so we have not been able to break through this duopoly who has a stranglehold on our elections. And what I'm trying to do with the Voters' Bill of Rights is break this up. Because if you can't get on the ballot, how are you going to ever win any elections? The Libertarian Party spends most of its time running a marathon just to get to the starting line so that they can run another marathon. The duopoly drains us of our resources. They drain us of our money and our time and our energy by denying us ballot access. They gerrymander the hell out of districts so that they can make sure that their people stay in office 90% of the time. Congress has like a 20% approval rating, and they have like a 90 or 80 or 90% re-election rate. There's something wrong there, fundamentally wrong. And the government is not for the people anymore. The government is all about career politicians, and we need to get back to a more service level orientation. The Democrats and Republicans is just a dog and pony show. It's all propaganda and gaslighting at this point. They aren't even really hiding it anymore. They're kicking Donald Trump off the ballot in some states. They know that they're not going to be able to get the Supreme Court to really kick him off the ballot, but the governors of those states and the Secretary of States of those states, they get political agendas out of it. They get political triumph out of it. And so they go ahead and do it anyway, even though they know it's crap. It's all a charade. And if we ever want to have a restored America, we have integrity and faith in our election system, we have to undo the duopoly. We have to unrig the duopoly altogether. And my Voters' Bill of Rights goes to that effect greatly. Look, none of these people are people I would vote for. I have never felt represented in America. I have never voted for a congressperson or senator who has won in my entire life. That's a shame.
Thank you. All right, Chase Oliver. How can the next administration respond to current foreign policy and security challenges without doing more harm than good?
It's a great question. And, I think it's something that speaks to the fact that we need to remove ourselves from a military empire. That's the way we've been governing our foreign policy, certainly since I've been an adult, certainly since I've been 9/11, and long before. But since I've been able to pay attention and recognize what's going on, I've seen us engaging in military adventurism, regime change wars, these kinds of things all over the world, as well as propping up pretty horrible people by selling them weapons and allowing them to do all sorts of things. And so what do we have right now? We have a situation in Ukraine where we've armed them with hundreds of billions of dollars. I think we need to stop that. I think if people need to be arming Ukraine, it needs to be the people who are directly threatened by an expanding Russia. And it's not the United States. Poland can do that, Germany can do that, any of them can do that. We don't need to be doing that anymore. And I think it's because our policy of trying to expand our reach via military empire has failed. And so what can we do to not cause more harm than good in that situation? Well, I say let's get anybody who's peaceful the hell out of Ukraine. If you're a peaceful person and you want to leave Ukraine, and that includes those who have been conscripted in the Ukrainian army, you should be able to leave and become a refugee in the United States. I think if we want to combat the Russian military without selling weapons or fighting them, well, let's demoralize them. Let's say if you're a member of the Russian military who's currently in Ukraine and you go AWOL, we'll bring the United States an asylum claim because half those people are conscripted anyways. They don't want to be fighting and dying in the snow. Well, let's allow them to live a life of freedom instead. Let's be the example of the world, the humanitarian example of the world, and not the military example of the world. And as far as the other great foreign policy issue we have right now going on in Israel and Palestine, we can recognize that if an attack like that were to happen, like on October 7th happened to us, there would be rightful rage. We'd be upset about it if it happened in our neighborhood. But what we need to be telling Israel is what they are doing right now by airstriking and killing tens of thousands of innocent people, many of them being children. So they're not creating a more peaceful and stable Israel. They're creating more instability in the region. Because when you drone bomb and you airstrike and you kill a few hundred kids or 1,000 kids, well, guess what? You have a few hundred or a few thousand angry parents, brothers, and other people in the community. That doesn't make for a safer Israel. So I wish somebody had told us in 2001, had been a friend to us in the room, to say, you know what? This going to war, this expanding the national security state, all these things you're about to do from this attack on 9/11, they won't make you safer, it will make you less free and make this country or world less stable. We have to be willing to say that to Israel, to their face, point blank, and we don't have the political courage to do that from our leaders in Washington, D.C. What we have on both sides of the aisle is people who are basically going to do whatever Israel asks of them, because that is the political climate in which we currently live. We have to be able to say this, that what Israel is doing is wrong. Killing tens of thousands of innocent Palestinians is wrong, and we shouldn't be doing it with United States munitions. So we should stop selling arms everywhere. Stop the concept of foreign aid everywhere. And I know people will say, you're an isolationist. I'm not. I want us to engage in market diplomacy, in a trade with one another. That's how we engage with our international neighbors. Asking that we don't blow brown kids up in the Middle East is not going, oh, you're an isolationist. No, I'm someone who doesn't believe in violence to solve the issue. And so we, as a nation, need to come together around the idea that peaceful diplomacy is the real way it needs to go. And trust me, we've heard these words before from Barack Obama in 2008. I'm going to end the wars, I'm going to close Gitmo, I'm going to stop the drones. We're actually going to talk to our enemies without precondition. All of those are still good ideas. They were just abandoned by Barack Obama the day he got elected because he was never intending to fill them out in the first place. He was using the anti-war movement to win his election. And so I'm sick and tired of that. If you want a real anti-war voice, support a libertarian. That's what we need. And I want to be our standard bearer because I've always been an anti-war voter. That's what got me involved. I'm anti-war to the core. I always will be. Peace is always the better solution. Thank you.
Lars Mapstead, same topic.
Sure. Under my presidency, there will be no use of authorized military force. The Congress should declare war if we're going to go to war. If we're going to be killing people with our taxpayer dollars, it better be declared by our Congress, not the President of the United States. The Congress is not doing their duty. They have shirked their duty off onto the President because they don't want to take responsibility for the things that happen. We need to make Congress do their job by reducing the power of the President of the United States. And that is one of the main things that I'll be trying to do as President, is reduce the power of the presidency. We have just given the President way too much power. I remember very vividly the day that we started dropping bombs on Iraq. I remember exactly where I was driving and listening on the radio, and I cried about it. And I cried because I was like, why are we killing people? Why is my taxpayer dollars killing people in a far-off land that I don't know? And I'm always on the side of less death. I'm always on the side of not killing people as much as we possibly can. I believe that our military should be used for the defense of America only and should not be used for imperialistic overreach and trying to push our agenda and our authority onto other countries. We don't like when our government puts their authority onto us. Imagine how other countries feel when America is projecting its authority onto them. It pisses them off. We've created animosity and hatred all across this world, and we continue to suffer on this treadmill that just goes over and over again because we create a regime and then we replace that regime with a new regime, and then the new people are the bad people, and we kill the next round of people, and it just seems like we're really just hell-bent on obliterating and genocide of whole countries because we keep going through tribe after tribe and we're killing these people. We need to stop this. America doesn't need this. Regular Americans don't need to be bombing people across the world. I don't want my taxpayer dollars to be used for that. If somebody else wants to do that, fine, but don't use my taxpayer dollars to kill people anymore. I'm over it.
Joshua Smith, same subject.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, how can the next administration respond to foreign policy and security challenges without doing more harm than good?
Sure. Well, I think Lars brings up a great issue here. The AUMF, the authorization of use of military force that was brought back during Operation Iraq II, Operation Iraq Freedom. I brought this up earlier that we are now bombing Iraq again. This is at least the fourth time since I was 6 years old. I'm 40 now, and the reason why the president has the opportunity to just direct these powers is because of the AUMF, and that's something that needs to be taken away. It's something as president, I've promised I would get rid of right away. I would put the power back onto Congress. I'd make that their congressional duty, which the Constitution requires. I've said very clearly that if we were to put that back onto Congress, things would be much different because now they have to answer to their. They'd have to answer to their constituency. They'd have to say, yes, I voted to send us to war. I voted to send your sons and daughters to war. Instead of just constantly having these random drone strikes and little excursions where we send a couple hundred troops here and a couple hundred troops here and people die and innocent people dead, and we're supporting this Yemeni humanitarian crisis that has killed hundreds of thousands of children through starvation. The Syrian war, the war in Palestine. Now we're back in Syria. Now we're back in Yemen. It's just a never-ending cycle. It's because Congress has completely threw their duty out the window. And so we got to do away with the AUMF right away. It's very, very important. But also, as president, I have the opportunity before that happens to say, hey, we're not doing this anymore. We're done. We're bringing our troops home. We're going to let them heal. We're going to put an aggressive focus on mental health for our troops so that they can reintegrate with their families in a more sane and healthy way, and just stop fighting them. Stop. I'm not going to continue to send arms to Ukraine and send arms to Israel at no benefit whatsoever to the American public. Zero. There's no benefit for us. So why, I'm not going to continue to send foreign aid either. We're done with that. That also doesn't give any benefit to the American public. So, after that's all cut and we stop doing those things, then we have the opportunity to say, okay, what diplomatic trade deal do you have that to offer us as Americans that benefits the American people? And that's the only way that foreign policy should be handled from the American public anymore. Thank you.
Mike Zuma.
Sure. Thanks a lot. It's a very important question. I think there's two different ways to look at it, like all the issues that we've been talking about, right? We need to look at it from an ethical point of view, and in this case, we also have to look at it from a strategic point of view. Look, the ethics we've just discussed, and they are terribly important. The whole idea of going to some family anywhere in Iowa or in the United States, anywhere in the United States, going to a family that's struggling to make ends meet, and saying, we're going to take your money forcibly, right? This is not optional. We're going to take your money and we're going to use it to project military hegemony around the world. How do you feel about that? Oh, sorry, we don't actually ask how you feel about that. We just do it as a government. The simple dignity of being represented by a foreign policy, by the U.S. federal government, that aligns with your values has been taken away from you. This is an ethical problem that we need to get on top of. But it is also worth mentioning there is an underlying strategic issue here that for some reason a lot of people in the United States aren't talking about, but they are ready to hear it. Make no mistake about it. It is true that the United States federal government's military is very good at a tactical level. The government is good at blowing things up, it's good at killing people, it's good at taking ground, it's good at opening sea lanes, it's good at protecting odds and ends in terms of assets, it's good at bringing down a government, if you don't mind the secrets eventually getting out. But it must be said, and American citizens are ready to hear it, on a strategic level, we suck. It is not true that Americans would point to recent military interventions and say, notwithstanding the billions of dollars that we lost, notwithstanding the thousands of lives we lost, it was a good idea, it was worth it. Those examples don't exist. And by the way, talking about Iraq and Afghanistan, and this'll break your heart, we're not talking about billions of dollars, we're talking about trillions of dollars. By the way, this'll break your heart, we're not talking about thousands of lives. We're talking about millions with an M. The simple dignity of being represented by a foreign policy that aligns with your own personal ethics and values has been taken away from you. But it has been taken away from you by a federal government that actually doesn't know what it's doing on a strategic level in terms of satisfying some objective that Americans would recognize is in their interest. By the way, the rest of the world is ready for a new relationship with the United States government as well. We have lost friends by the buckets over the last 2 decades, and acceleratingly so. Look, what's going on in the Middle East is personal. You know, Chase talked about this, and he's exactly right. We all have very, very strong feelings about what's going on. No question about it. I've traveled the Middle East extensively, all over Israel. I've traveled Palestinian territories. I've sent my son to the Middle East to train. I've sent my daughter to the Middle East to train. It's personal to a lot of us. There are members on my team that have family there. We have a prominent member of the Libertarian Party who recently announced that he lost a family member in the Palestinian territories. This is personal. But having said that, we cannot be in the business of subsidizing what other governments are doing. It leads to the United States government being held responsible. It holds us back. Ironically, it almost invariably holds back the countries that we're subsidizing. For this reason, we need a brand new foreign policy. It starts with exiting NATO. It starts with telling investors you should not be investing in Taiwan if you believe that you need to be backed up by the U.S. Department of Defense. If you need to invest in a place that the Defense Department is going to back up, let me suggest Des Moines, okay? Because that's a place that will back up. And we need to be telling our friends and foes alike in the Middle East, you do you, we're out.
Thank you. As you've started to hear, we are live from a pub, so Felix and Oscar's. I actually chose that venue in part because this is the kind of business that we all show up and support that actually hurt the most during the last few years. So we wanted to keep it kind of conversational, and we're going to let every candidate give a closing statement and an opportunity to provide information on how to best keep track of their campaign. So for this, we will go with Mike Tremont.
Sure. Thanks for putting up with our conversation. It's been a lot of fun. I hope it's been educational for some folks out there, and thanks for putting this together. It was really a good idea, and it's great to be in Iowa. By the way, and we don't say this enough, and I apologize, sometimes I don't take the opportunity to say this. These are great guys on the panel here, and if anyone, let me be candid about this. Anybody who says anything bad about one of these guys, we're going to fight in the hallway. That's the truth of the matter. My campaign is a couple of, I think, interesting announcements. It's a creative bunch of people, and we've been working very hard. So there's a couple of things I want to bring to your attention. One is, I mentioned earlier, you can go to goldnewdeal.org and read about our platform. It's full of the most transformational ideas in libertarian thought. I think you're really going to enjoy it. You can go back and forth to the basic campaign website, miketremont.com, but it's harder to spell, so start out with goldnewdeal.org. The couple of quick announcements I want to make. Number one, we have a book coming out. It's called, it's called The Gold New Deal, because we're not that creative, right? The book is named after our platform. But it's creative in the sense that there are a dozen people who have submitted essays that we have collected, and some of those people are really fascinating authors. People like Max Borders, Larry Sharp, a lot of Larry Sharp fans here maybe. He participated in the project, and I think you'll really enjoy it. It's on Amazon. It's only a few bucks. It's paperback. So knock yourself out if you want to read something while you're stuck at home in the snow. The other announcement that we have that I think is even more interesting than reading a book, we have an AI bot coming out. It's out now in beta test. You can go see it at libertarianintelligence.org, which is also hard to spell, so you might just go to the regular campaign website or go to goldnewdeal.org and transfer over that. And it's an AI bot that's being trained to answer questions like a libertarian. I don't mean in a weird way, I mean in a good way, right? It's all about libertarian thought and libertarian philosophy, and the idea is to help spread our philosophy and our thoughts, our principles and ethics and values beyond the Libertarian Party. We all have concerns about AI going forward, right? We all recognize that if the government or other evil actors get their hands on AI, we could be in a world of hurt. But having said that, AI is the future and we need to learn how to use it. And I think that AI bots, although still a little bit weird, can be a lot of fun. So I encourage you to go check it out. It is in beta test, which is to say if you see that it says something weird, please let me know so that we can fix it. But it's a good time. Check it out. Thanks a lot.
Chase Oliver.
So I want to thank the Libertarian Party of Iowa for throwing this debate, for hosting caucuses again in all 99 counties. I've had a pleasure traveling through the state over the last few months. It's been something that I've really enjoyed. From getting slingshot in the air 100 feet at the state fair because I raised $1,000 in a day, or being taken to a maid right where I'm eating dinner, and of course the guy behind the counter lets every other customer know that guy's a presidential candidate. Go ask him questions right now. So I appreciate the retail politics that Iowa has brought to this process. It's something that's very special. It's something that you guys are very unique about. But I'm very proud of this campaign. We're a campaign of energy and enthusiasm. We're a campaign of passion. It was the honor of my life to be able to put a thumb in the eye of the duopoly last year as a Senate candidate. I want to do that in all 50 states. I want to show that the Libertarian Party is a party of freedom and a party of principle in all corners of the country. That's why I'm traveling to all 50 states before our convention. I hope that the delegates can see that this work is coming to fruition, with the fact that we have the largest donor network, we've traveled the most miles, hosted the most events, and gotten the most media of any of the Libertarian candidates this cycle around. And so with that, I can tell you we're going to continue this process all the way through November and beyond. My job, of course, if I win the election in November, my job quickly changes. But if I don't win the election, my job becomes one of helping members grow. I want to help affiliates grow. And so I'm going to start getting on the phone and making sure every single person who signed up on our website or was interested in the campaign is getting connected with their local affiliate. And the last promise I'm going to make you is as this campaign moves forward, we're going to help LPI win the other 49 state affiliates plus DC, because every person who signs up to our website, we're going to give that direct information to the state parties directly. We're going to decentralize it. 4 years ago, we gave it to the national party. It didn't really move as quickly as we wanted it to. So in line with libertarian principles, we're no longer going to be top down. We're going to decentralize that out to each and every individual state member. So I hope LP Iowa and the other 49 states plus DC are looking forward to getting lots of new members, new enthusiasm, new energy, and we are going to grow ourselves and make sure in 2028 this party is on a better playing field than they are in 2024. This is a building year, and this is the time to do it. Thank you. Oh, and visit votechaseoliver.com to learn more, and if you want to follow me on social media, it's Chase for Liberty. Thank you.
Lars Mepstead.
Thank you. Our system is clearly rigged, and the most rigged system that we have currently is our electoral system. Without a functioning electoral system, we can't have a functioning republic. Nobody believes in our electoral system anymore. People are disenfranchised. People have stopped voting. Majority of people are now independent because they're so disillusioned with the duopoly. People are so pissed off that they're rioting in the streets. We had things like the BLM riots, and we had January 6th. And that is because people feel disenfranchised and they feel like they are not represented by their government anymore. If we do not fix our election systems, these are going to continue to happen. I'm trying to do something in the Libertarian Party that hasn't been done before. and that is win electoral votes on election night and put us on the map. We need to be taken seriously, and we need to win something. I believe that we can win an electoral vote on election night and get every person in America to Google what is a libertarian. I want more people to Google what is a libertarian. That's how I found I was a libertarian, and I believe most people want to be left alone and want limited government, but they don't know that we exist. All the time I hear, you're just a libtard because it has the word lib in it, or you're just a MAGA who smokes pot. No, we want limited government. That is our common thing that we all believe in. All libertarians want less government. Some of us want no government, and some of us want like 6 people running government, but we all want less government. And that's what my campaign is all about. I need your help, though. I cannot do it unless I am elected as your representative for president. I need you to be a delegate for me. I need you to go and donate. I have put $500,000 of my own money into this campaign. It is not enough. We need 5 million. We need 10 million. We cannot get the message of liberty out without money. It doesn't matter who has a very base message. If no one's hearing it, it doesn't matter. If you yell base message in an empty forest, it doesn't help. We got to fill the forest with people so that they can hear the message of liberty and start spreading it. I have a huge team of people that is working with me, and that when I get the nomination, I'm ready to hit the ground running. I have the resources to do that. I have spent over $100 million on advertising in my career. I know how to spend money wisely and efficiently to reach the most people, and I'm going to do that with the libertarian message. I am going to get the message out to the most people possible of anybody on this stage. I firmly believe that. If you want to support me, go to lars24.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at Libertarian Lars, or on Facebook, Lars for President. Thank you very much.
Joshua Smith. Well, I do have a base message, in case anyone's wondering. Thanks, though, Lars. Here's the. I agree with what my friends are saying up here, almost to the T across the board. I think a lot of what we said today was reiterating what the person next to us said in a different way. One thing that I do disagree with vehemently, though, is my good friend Mike Termont said that he thinks most people have a libertarian streak to them. I don't believe that's true. I believe that most people are playing team sports, and I think that that's what's really important to them. And the government is supposed to represent the people. That's literally what they were created for. And who better than somebody who's a blue-collar, working-class dad of 7, who's being, ruined by this government to represent us. That's what the mass majority of the country is. They all have a blue-collar streak. They all have a parent and family streak. This is really what the salt of the earth in the United States is. It's the middle class. It's blue-collar, working-class families. And I'm just that. That's exactly who I am. I'm somebody who's fed up with them using my tax money to fight wars around the world. I'm tired of them using inflation to steal more. I'm tired of the way that they lock people in violent rape cages for things like pot. I'm tired of these things. And most Americans are tired of these things. Whether they know what a libertarian is or not, we need someone that makes them feel like they're part of a team. And that's what I do. That's what I offer. I get to be that blue-collar voice for Americans that are just being damaged by this government. And so I hope that, come May, when we walk into the National Convention and we, play the dog and pony show on stage, you guys will realize that I am that person. I am the guy that wants to go and represent that section of America, the biggest section of America, the largest majority of the voters in America. And I think that with the right message, we're going to resonate with those people. So please go check out joshuasmith2024.com. You can find out my whole platform there. We have all of our videos up there. You can figure out how to donate, how to become a volunteer. Yes, everybody on this stage needs delegates. I'm hoping that you'll be in DC in May to help us secure the nomination. Thank you guys so much.